Good evening. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nithi Razdan. Tonight, the verdict for one of India's most sensational murders is out. Nupur and Rajesh Talwar have been found guilty for the murder of their daughter Aarushi and help Hemraj, but maintain their innocence. The question we're asking tonight, did the Talwars get a fair trial? Well, more than 5 years after the double murders of 14-year-old Aarushi Talwar and domestic help Hemraj, Aarushi's parents Rajesh and Nupur Talwar have been found guilty. The CBI judge announced the verdict this afternoon, and the Talwars, who wept as they heard it, were immediately taken to jail. The sentencing is expected tomorrow. While the detailed order will also be known on Tuesday, the judge for the moment has just said that it's proved beyond reasonable doubt that the accused are the perpetrators of the crime in question. Parents, the judge said, are the best protectors of their own children, but they have been freaks in the history of mankind where the father and mother became the killer of their own progeny. They have extirpated their own daughter and the servant without compunction.
Guilty of murdering their daughter and their domestic help, described by the court as freaks in the history of mankind. 5 years after their death, is this justice for Aarushi and Hemraj?
The Talwar couple is guilty of all charges. With just these words, the judge pronounced the highly anticipated verdict in the Aarushi Talwar Hemraj double murder case, arguably the biggest whodunit the country has witnessed in years.
The court said Nupur and Rajesh Talwar are guilty of killing their daughter and domestic help. They had destroyed evidence to save themselves from punishment. And Rajesh Talwar had given the police false information to mislead them. Arguments on the sentencing will start tomorrow. The couple faces a life term at the minimum, the death penalty at the most. Those allowed inside the court said the couple broke down on hearing the verdict.
Straight after being pronounced guilty, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar were brought here to Dasna jail in Ghaziabad. Nupur came in crying, Rajesh still in shock. This is the second time they are here to serve their sentence. For now, they have been kept in two separate, isolated cells amidst high security.
There was a big contingent of friends and family of the Talwars, and they left the premises saying they had become victims of the CBI.
Facts and the evidence, what do they say? They are pointing towards somebody else being the culprit. But that, very conveniently by the CBI, has been called a typing error.
They are the victims here. They have lost their only daughter.
After the verdict, Talwars, through their lawyers, sent out a statement to the media saying that they felt they have been grievously wronged. But the court felt that the arguments that the CBI had made on the basis of the circumstantial evidence that they had gathered was enough to prove their guilt. With Sonal Mehrotra and Neha Khanna, this is Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, the murders divided opinion in India and saw an intense debate over the last 5 years with many bizarre twists and turns that continue to baffle even today. First, Rajesh Talwar was arrested and let off, then the servants, then the Talwars again. The CBI has seen so many contradictions in this case in which they themselves admitted that the proof was not clinching. My colleague Sunitra Chaudhary has more on that.
Well, Judge Shamlal says that it is without a doubt, but really we'll have to see that in the details of the judgment. What we know so far is what we've seen in court, and that's this. This is just one of the few of the various contradictions that we've seen in the case. First, the pillow case, which was talked about by Vandana Talwar, aunt of Aarushi. And what they say is, first, CBI said it was found in Krishna's house, and it proved their case, in fact, that it was the helps did it. That was the first time. Then we saw a complete U-turn, and in which the CBI said that they were only blaming typo. There was an error in all of it, in the forensic samples, in the way it was sampled, and they said then that it was found in the Talwar residence, so there was nothing unusual about it at all. Now, let's also look at this entire thing, of course, made a thing of whether the key evidence was actually convincing or not. If they could get something like this key evidence wrong, then could you believe them? Now, the second thing is, of course, the various CBI teams and their changing stands, and it's all been done with the various bosses that were involved. In 2008, you had Vijay Shankar as the director, who said very clearly, we will solve the case. He said it was a very straightforward one. And what else did he do? He also charged the domestic helps in the entire case. Then, after him, in November, came Ashwini Kumar, who took a completely different stand. He dissolved the entire old team, set up a new one, had a different joint director. And what did the new team say? The new team, first of all, allowed the domestic helps to get bail. So obviously they weren't under the suspicion, and they started to point towards the family. November 2010 is when AP Singh took over, and just a month after he took over, that's when CBI filed the closure report, not the charge sheet. So even then, they weren't really sure. But what they did highlight in that closure report was the probability of the parents' role. But throughout they kept saying that, look, it looks like it probably was them. So if you look at the nitty-gritty and the exact set of evidence that there is from the crime scene, the CBI's version is that the crime scene was clean, it was doctored by the family. Parents, of course, say that, look, if we cleaned it up, it was after we told the parents. That's the first thing. If you look at the second thing is, of course, the weapon. Now, if you look at the legal watches, they're saying a weapon was never recovered. But the golf club is something that has been questioned. CBI said that the Talwars' friends sent a mail on the golf club, and then after a year they handed it over, suggestion being they should have given it sometime later. Also, they said that the injury on the head of the victims matched that of the golf club. Parents, of course, say that there was no such mail sent, and they said that they also point out no DNA was ever recovered from the golf club. Then, of course, the other mystery of Hemraj's body. CBI says that he was attacked in Aarushi's room and then dragged to terrace. What the parents point out, and what the CBI itself also points out, the problem with that theory is that there isn't any evidence of Hemraj's presence in Aarushi's room. In fact, what's also very, very mysterious, what CBI hasn't been able to explain, is how is it that in Rajesh's own clothes, no DNA or no blood of Hemraj was found, if what they're saying is indeed right, while that of Aarushi was found. And of course, the last thing is the Scotch bottle, which CBI says that there's been an attempt to wipe fingerprints on the bottle. There was a bottle there, there is a fingerprint there. But the parents said, and it's something that the CBI also acknowledged, that there is no DNA of Rajesh or Nupur on the bottle, and this has been proved by all the forensic experts. So what does the court say about all of these points? We'll just have to wait for the details to emerge from the courtroom.
All right, Sunetra Chaudhary, they're talking about the number of contradictions that this case has thrown up. In fact, those are just a sample of the contradictions. There are many, many more unanswered questions. And tonight, let's just take a look at how we view this trial and whether it has been a fair trial or not. Joining us this evening on Left, Right and Centre, we have Radhika Chadda, who's a close family friend of the Talwars. Her husband grew up with Rajesh and Dinesh Talwar, and she herself has known them for about 20 years now. Sushil Bajaj is a well-known criminal lawyer who is very familiar with the case and the ups and downs and various twists and turns that it's taken over the last few years. Columnist Namita Bhandari is with us. She's been keeping a close eye in particular on the way the media has covered this trial and this entire case since the murders happened way back in May of 2008. Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, Mr. KTS Tulsi, joins us tonight from Delhi. Also with us, the former Director of the CBI from Vellore, Mr. D.R. Karthikeyan, and Maxwell Pereira, the former Joint Commissioner of the Delhi Police. Let me ask Radhika Chadda though first. You know, how would you describe the feeling today? Because in a sense, when you look at the build up to this trial and everything that's happened in the last couple of years, and particularly during this trial, did it even surprise you that the verdict came the way that it did?
In a way, no. But we really hoped that the court was going to deliver justice. We have a verdict today, Nidhi. We don't have justice because these people are innocent. There is not a shred of evidence upon which this case stands. We have to see the judgment. I'm not a legal expert, but there is no evidence. There is no motive. There is no timeline that has been established, and yet they've been found guilty. So we have a verdict which probably was decided when all the prejudice built up against them almost 5 years ago, but we don't have justice, and that is the tragedy of the situation.
What has made you so unflinching in your belief that they're innocent though? I know you're a close friend of theirs, but did you ever have any doubts at all?
No,
ever
never.
Since this happened?
Never,
Why?
never. I knew Aarushi, I know Rajesh and Nupur, and I know that they could never have done this. There was no evidence on that date, on the day that Aarushi died, that they were guilty of anything. They were most regular and normal in their reactions to such a heinous crime, an unimaginable situation. None of us can imagine this ever having taken place. So that any insinuation that they were clinical in their reactions or that they were inhuman or they were very calm and serene about it is completely wrong. They were distraught, they were completely shattered, and they remain to date. They have enormous strength, which all of us in the family wonder where they get it from. I have heard on television channels that is what is what the world holds against them most often. That they are so calm and they seem to be able to deal with this. If you're in that situation with your back against the wall, you're fighting with your back against the wall, how would you react? You wouldn't know, but everybody reacts. Why do we have to justify our reactions to anybody?
I'm going to talk about that because that also leads into part of the perceptions about the way the media covered this and how they looked at Rajesh and Nupur Talwar. But Radhika, the point is that this is a court at the end of the day that has convicted them, and a court does at the end of the day look at evidence. It weighs whatever evidence is presented before it. I know, again, we don't know the detailed order yet, but you would have to concede that it is a court of law and it would have weighed everything that has come before it.
So what if we say that everything has not come before it? There is so much evidence that the CBI has not put out. The CBI itself conducted an acoustic test and they have the results which said that nothing can be heard from Aarushi's room and Rajesh and Nupur's room. Why has that not come forth? There is a pillow case that we've been discussing all day on television, right? It's very simple to just send the pillow case back for testing. But if you follow the paper trail, which I wish you would as a journalist, and you would see where this typographic error occurred, it is words put into a mouth of a forensic expert asking, is it not a typographic error? And the reply comes, yes, it is. It is what you're asking us to say. So that if we were to follow, there is a cookery that was sent for some kind of forensic testing and no more. There was blood on that cookery. It is established that it was blood. They could not say of what origin. Not human, but then what origin? It could have been sent for more advanced testing in this country to the Hyderabad lab. It was not sent. In this case, there is evidence. Whenever evidence pointed in another direction, away from Rajesh and Nupur, that was stopped. It has been blocked or it has not been followed, so that the court will have to act ultimately on the basis of evidence put before it.
So you believe all the facts of the case were not presented before them. But Mr. Tulsi, Radhika Chadha does make a good argument there because, you know, when it comes to a case of murder, Mr. Tulsi, our understanding is that it should be something that is proved beyond reasonable doubt, that it should be unflinching evidence and clear-cut evidence that the accused have done this. Can you say, Mr. Tulsi, today, as a senior lawyer, that you believe that this is a cut-and-dry case and that it is clear-cut evidence? Because at the moment, it appears to be more circumstantial than anything else.
Well, I firstly want to say that if friends are judges, nobody will ever go to jail. Being a friend itself is a disqualification from being able to make a valid judgment. Besides, I want to say that in this case, this is, according to me, an open and shut case. Not from today, but the day I read the closure report when in December of 2010, I was in Jaipur and I was asked by NDTV to give my comments, and I had to perforce read the entire closure report, and I gave my reasons, and I have maintained that in a case where there are 4 people in the house and 2 people in the morning are found dead, there is no intrusion from outside. There is, according to the law, section 106, the burden is on those 2 who were last seen with the victims, and those if they cannot offer a satisfactory explanation, the court presumes them guilty. Now they don't want to understand the final nitty-gritty. I don't understand how Dr. Talwar and Nupur, they have constantly tried to control the investigation, send them in a particular direction, do this, do that, why not do this? That's not the right of a defense. The investigation is to be conducted by the police, which is an independent agency. It's not the tool in the hands of the victims. And then you see, in a case like this, there are 2 persons who have died, and both the dead bodies bear the stamp of the killer. And the stamp of the killer is the seat of injury, the fatal injury. The fatal injury in the case of Hemraj is the back of his head. And
Mr.
it's,
Tulsi,
according to the witnesses,
Mr. Tulsi, you quoted the
same
CBI
golf
closure
club.
report, and you know I can't argue with you on legal points because I'm not a lawyer, and you will certainly outdo me on that. But just reading the closure report, the same CBI did not file a charge sheet. It was the court then that essentially converted that closure report in the charge sheet. I'm quoting from the closure report. The CBI said that there were critical and serious gaps in the circumstances which made it difficult to string together the sequence of events. They also said the circumstantial evidence collected during investigation, which has gaps, also shows an absence of a clear-cut motive and an incomplete understanding about what happened, the non-recovery of the weapon of offence, and because of that, they are not able to prove anything beyond reasonable doubt. This is the same CBI closure report. It's just that, Mr. Tulsi, let me take this to Mr. Karthikeyan. Mr. Karthikeyan, you know, this case seems to have thrown up a lot more questions than answers. And the conduct of the police and the CBI in this case has also come under intense scrutiny, sir, because we've seen one U-turn after another in this case. Would you say that this has been investigated with utmost professionalism at the end of the day?
No, there have been twists and turns throughout these agonizing 5 years. It's very unfortunate for the parents who lost their only daughter to be convicted for murder of their child.
Hello.
I don't think anywhere they have said it's a premeditated murder. You know, I am in a place where I have no access to the television. I don't know what are the details of the judgment, but now from whatever I have known about the case, and I'm inclined to agree with Mr. K.T.S. Tulsi. In fact, on the day the closure report was filed, I was asked by you the same evening a question whether I would have charge sheeted the case if I had been director of CBI. I said yes, but not for murder. I would have charge sheeted them for disappearance of evidence, because there were only 4 persons according to the evidence, according to the closure report of the CBI, which I read in the newspaper, and then according to which, though nobody else had an access, 2 are dead, 2 are at home, 2 were in the house. The 2 have to answer who committed the murder, or they have to be held responsible for causing disappearance of evidence, because there was so much of evidence which came in the closure report itself. So I said yes, I would have charge sheeted the case for causing disappearance of evidence. But 15 days later, I found a trial judge on the same closure report telling that they should stand trial for murder and causing disappearance of evidence. So I was not surprised about it. Now, while I feel sad for the parents and they have to go through this, but a murder of a 14-year-old girl and also the servant boy, it's a crime against the society, whatever may be the provocation or circumstances. So you can't sympathize with them and then close, because the job of the investigating agency is to investigate it properly, thoroughly, and place whatever is collected before the court of law. And I agree there have been some errors, in the last 5 years' time, but ultimately when the matter is placed before the court, that the trial judge took the decision, yes, it cannot be a closure, even on the facts collected by the CBI, there has to be a trial, not only for the causing disappearance of evidence, but also for the murder. Now the accused had plenty of opportunity. They gone to all the courts any number of times. You can't say there was no opportunity. They were supported by very eminent lawyers of this country. But ultimately, if the trial judge, after hearing everything, after going through all the documentary evidence and circumstantial evidence, has taken a decision and hold them guilty, I don't think I am competent to sit in judgment over the judgment of the judge.